Today we talk about trauma response, but we're often familiar with the responses that are negative, like fearful relationships, or always worried that someone is going to lie to you. But let's today talk about the ones that look like thriving, that are positive ones that may have actually still come out of trauma. That being kind is a wonderful attribute, but what if it's more like people pleasing, where you're still a kind person, but you are doing it because you're terrified of abandonment or you're terrified of conflict? So what makes it different is that you are actually um, possibly hurting yourself. You're sacrificing your own needs in order not to be abandoned or have conflict, but what comes out to the outside world is just a kind person. So I want today to talk to Sylvia about different types of trauma responses, ones we don't normally talk about that looks very positive, the perfectionist, the hardworking person. And we're going to go through each response and talk about ways of recognizing it and maybe doing better for ourselves, leading a healthier, happier life. Hi,
Yes.
Sylvia.
Hi, Jess. Hi, Jess.
Like old times, talking to you from the West Coast.
Yes, I'm talking to you from the East Coast. I think that this is such a good message to bring or a revelation to share because it can go unnoticed, right? Because, like you said, it's a positive thing, so it seems, but even I can do it. I can do it. I don't. No, I'm okay. I don't need your help. I can do it. That whole self-reliance is really can be right an underlying trauma response to fearing having to depend on someone because people have
Nobody takes
not
it for
shown
granted.
up, right?
Right.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm excited to share today.
So let's talk about what I people pleasing, which and because I think there are a lot of wonderful, kind people, and I want to not say that they're not. They're still wonderful and kind. But things like this. So what if you always say yes to things, the things that you don't want to really go to, or you feel pulled? I know I'm guilty of this. I think I'm better at it, but I try to do 12 things in one day and try to make sure
Mhm.
that everyone is taken care of. And again, it must come from something, right? Uh,
Right.
I don't want to get rejected. I want everyone to be happy, but it's that, which is wonderful, but in the end, I'm pulled too thin. And
Yeah.
if you do things like that too, you don't show up 100% for everyone because it's impossible.
Right. And one of the ways to distinguish, like, well, is that me? Is that what I'm doing? Is are you feeling overwhelmed by what you agreed to? Are you feeling resentment because you now have to do this? So that's a good way to kind of like check what is this really about?
And does it hurt you in some way?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you not taking care of yourself because you're taking care of everybody else? I mean, it's just about balance. I'm not saying don't be kind. It's really the reason behind it. Like you said,
Right.
it's if
Right.
you're being hurt by doing it, if you're
Right.
not denying your own needs.
Right.
And it's not
Exactly.
selfish to take care of yourself.
No, it's actually a very, and we talk about this all the time, but it's a very selfless act to take care of yourself because what do I always say? An empty vessel can't pour into, another.
Right.
So yeah.
It's absolutely true. Another one is perfectionism. So you're at work and, so to the outside world, you look like this incredible employee that works, weekends, hours, you're just handing in incredible whatever you're doing, whatever the project is. But in the end, you're not taking care of yourself, you're not taking care of your family.
Mhm.
But you're a perfectionist because maybe as a child, if you failed, your parents wouldn't love you. It was
Right.
conditional love. So you learned to be to try to always be perfect. That pressure though of being a perfectionist is really hard on people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's difficult to carry long term.
Difficult to carry long term.
Yeah.
People get sick. I mean, you can't
Yeah.
work. And again, other relationships lose out because if you're at work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, because you don't want to be again rejected, or you want to show up, in a way that you're looked good to the outside world, but now your family is suffering too, or other,
Yeah.
so it's you and others.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
Downplaying achievements. So you do something really
Mm,
wonderful, and someone talks to you, tells you, congratulations on whatever it is, and you're like, oh, it's nothing. I didn't do, it's nothing very much. I didn't do it on my own, whatever. I mean, of course, some modesty is appropriate, right?
right.
But this is when you can't. I know the old
Yeah.
expression, where your kid can't take a compliment.
Right.
You're not able to do that. You're dismissing compliments or achievements. You're immediately counting, oh, you counted the positive of promotion. Oh, it really wasn't me that did. I don't know, whatever it is, you can't hold on to that.
Yeah. Well, that also, a, tr a reason for that being a trauma response is the self-worth at some point was affected. So it's always almost like well, it's difficult to receive a compliment or to, just receive the, like the accolades. But
And
yeah,
sometimes what happens in childhood is, if you're in a family where you're given a compliment or you've done something good, but the next moment it's followed by something bad. So you
right,
don't even feel the compliment is even safe or real.
right, right.
Emotional self-regulation that becomes shut down. So it appears as being level-headed and calm, but really you've learned, most likely in childhood, because most likely this comes out of childhood trauma, you learn that being, what we talk about, freeze mode. You learn that going into freeze mode or being calm is actually the way to be in a, the way to handle the crisis, the chaos that may have happened in your childhood. So you're always the calm one. People look to you as being the one to the go-to. But the negative of it, because there's, for you, is that you have difficulty expressing your feelings. You
Yeah,
have difficulty experiencing emotion, which could also be positive.
right,
You appear, like, again, the calm one in the situations, but in situations which is great for crisis, but you're also the same in other situations. So you're missing out on life,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. How about waiting for the shoe to drop?
Hmm. Right. And what a way to live. That means you're always hyper vigilant. And
Yeah,
you and I've talked about this. We've been that way in our relationships, which is trauma. We were
right,
taught that way. So if we weren't taught as children, although I was taught as a child, then we were certainly taught in our relationships. And that's no
yeah,
way to live. And we've also talked about what it does to your body when you're
exactly.
bring out the
Yeah,
shoe, as you put it.
yeah. And the thing is that all of these things that you've just mentioned have a physical effect on the body because um, our hormone cortisol is being like it's out of balance, and so it has that effect on the body. It can be anything from anxiety to immune disorders.
Oh,
Like
yeah. I mean, we've talked about the chronic, there's different types of trauma, right? You can have an event
mhm,
that, where we talk about war or a natural disaster, or you can be in a relationship or in childhood where it's happening all the time. So you're hyper vigilant all the time,
right,
you're anxiety ridden all the time. And what it does to your body, people get sick.
yeah,
You
absolutely,
pointed out the autoimmune disorders.
yeah,
And I've talked about, I've, been in relationships where I've literally, my body was just exploding in all different ways. And
hmm,
um, for the reason that you had said.
yeah, yeah,
And so we may look calm on the outside. You may be performing on the outside, which we did. We went to work, we did, but in the inside, your body is in havoc.
yeah. I think it's called survival mode.
Yeah, you're in survival mode.
So yeah,
I knew that before. I mean, I used that term before I even knew it was the right term.
yeah,
You're literally in survival mode. And I used to call
yeah,
it mommy mode when you do it with your kids.
yeah,
That's a little different, but you are in survival mode. And often it comes, how you act during this time comes out of previous trauma,
right,
or you're
exactly.
creating trauma, or you're in
Yeah,
trauma.
yeah,
Yeah, it does havoc on your body, as you said. Um, Chronic self-reliance and difficulty receiving help. So independence can mask as attachment trauma. You never want to need somebody. You have difficulty asking for help or accepting help. Um, your discomfort, being vulnerable. And again, all these things may work in the right time, but it's difficult to be in a relationship with someone who is like that
Yeah,
because the other person is going to feel rejected. The other person is going to, you never can get really intimate. You never can take that next step to a true, intimate, fulfilling relationship if you're always on guard.
yeah. I know I certainly experienced that as because it was like it goes hand in hand, you know. Well, I had the bad experiences and where I was always waiting for the shoe to drop. So before that happens, I'm going to make sure that I don't give that opportunity.
Yeah.
And you know, it takes a lot of introspection and healing. And when you do enter into a relationship, if we're talking about a romantic relationship or even a friendship,
Mhm.
right? To to have the experience with that person where it's safe to not be that way.
Right. And it takes time and it takes a lot of
Yeah,
love and nurturing from the other person to take down that wall, as we say, and trust them and rewire. And it's rewiring your brain. You literally have to rewire your brain
right,
in order
exactly.
to allow that and stop your response, which we talk about the traitor, but you always have to know that those responses are always there. It's more about managing them. It's hard to
Yeah,
rid of them completely because there are times where things come up or you get triggered and you go into these modes that we're talking about.
right.
But yes, to be in a relationship, it helps to
Yeah,
the other person to, it takes time.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Over explaining yourself. So what seems like thoroughness is fear-based, providing extra details to people when they, let's just say, oh God, give an example. Take an example. You're just over justifying a decision someone makes. You have a party and you invite um, 20 people to a dinner party, and you aren't able to invite the 10 other people to this party, and you're worried that they're going to be upset. So you tell them, 12, you call them up and they don't even know about the party. And you call them up and you tell them, 10 reasons why you can't invite them to the party. And so, you're just over justifying it or any other decision you make, a decision about hiring somebody, a
Mhm.
decision about, I don't know, getting married. I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah, a
It's
decision
explanation.
about not wanting to go to an event or not wanting to accept the job offer. You know, like whatever. It's the need to yeah,
Right. Your need to, explanations you don't need to do
right.
that, but you need to do it. You need to provide extra details, apologize excessively for minor issues, feeling compelled, for doing it. And this also comes out of a trauma response of being fearful of they'll not understand you and they'll reject you, fearful,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
struggling to rest and relax. You're always on the go. Consistently busyness is also a trauma in disguise. Feeling anxious or guilty when not being productive, physical restlessness when attempting to relax. So somewhere you learn that you have to keep maybe being hypervigilant. In your childhood,
Yeah,
whenever the trauma occurred, you had to keep going. You couldn't stop.
yeah,
Not to
yeah,
think. You couldn't stop to feel. You
yeah,
couldn't stop. Otherwise, disaster will happen.
right. Exactly. Yeah,
Difficulty making decisions. What might look as thoughtfulness can actually reflect deeper issues. So, paralysis when faced with choices, excessive research when making decisions, seeking multiple opinions, not trusting your own. That also comes out.
yeah. It's a fear-based trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Minimizing your own pain and needs. Self sacrifice is often masked for strength.
Mm.
comparing your struggles to others, but just, I mean, but dismissing your own.
Right.
I've talked about it, when I started writing my book, when I started talking about my own trauma, and I still do. I don't feel like it's enough trauma to talk about. Like, I don't feel like, because I'm privileged in so many ways, growing up, I felt like my trauma didn't count. And
Right.
I would always preface when I would talk about it as saying, okay, I know this is not like I'm starving in Rwanda. I know this is not like I'm in war, in the Sudan. I said, this is so nothing, but the truth is trauma is trauma. Pain is pain.
Right, exactly. The trauma is trauma, and it was something, right? Right.
Certainly felt that way as a child.
Right, exactly. You felt the mark of it, right? So it's yeah, that's absolutely. And I think that that might stem from just the downplaying of, right? If we are used to downplaying the situations, and like you said, to be very sacrificial,
Mhm.
um, but all of these things definitely take a toll on how we show up in life.
Oh, right. 100%.
Yeah,
Um, Another one, hypervigilant and caretaking. Taking charge isn't always about leadership, being responsible for other people's emotions and needs. So this may be how you were as a child, that you were the one, you had a parent who was who was either ill or was an addict, for example. And so that was your role to make everything calm. Or you need to control the situation.
right,
If you're the one you feel safer if you're in control.
right, right.
Bad things can happen if you're the one who's always,
Yeah,
delegating anything. You're the one who's always in control.
right, right.
And I want to point out that we're talking about all things that aren't terrible things. These are good, but just to recognize, to understand. I think, again, we always talk about knowledge is a superpower, to understand where things, come from, so that and to recognize it and to see if you are being hurt by this. And
Yes, exactly.
right. And then if you are, first step is recognize it. And then the second step is making decisions on what you want to do
Yeah,
about it. And some of which is, if you find yourself being triggered and doing things like this, you stop, you think about it, you give yourself compassion, self-compassion, and maybe try to rewire your brain a little bit by making different choices.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
saying don't be kind, but you can be kind without completely giving up part of you,
Well, right, without the self-sacrifice.
without the self-sacrifice.
Right, exactly. Because again, back to how we started, how does it make you feel? If it makes you feel angry or burdened or, overwhelmed, then it may not have been the best choice.
So, yeah. So, number one, self-compassion. It is really important. Be mindful, be aware of what's happening, pause and notice, oh, I notice my heart's racing and my thoughts are racing. And I'm just have to make everyone happy, but I'm getting sick. I'm preparing Thanksgiving dinner and I'm not sleeping because I'm whatever it is that you're doing. I just maybe stop and say, okay, maybe I don't need to do, or I could allocate, someone else can bring
Right.
dessert, something. There's ways of, doing it. Um, have just be kind. We also talk about,
Yeah,
self-compassion, but also self-care.
yeah, absolutely.
And still be all these wonderful pieces, but also take care of yourself at the same time. And I think being mindful is important. Um,
Yeah.
you know, boundaries, 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 boundaries. If that helps too, right? Creating boundaries.
Sometimes I think that, when we hear boundaries, we think like that we're almost like being rude or something. And that's quite the contrary. Boundaries are a wonderful thing to kind of like make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, make sure that we're doing the right thing by even our families, our friendships, because when we don't have those boundaries, I, it's taken a long time to learn this. When we don't have those boundaries, it's not good.
And you're not a bad person if you put up boundaries.
You're not a bad person, right? Exactly.
Even when, because I've talked about certain boundaries, like with my brother, I had to put up, and some ex, an ex, I had to put up very strict boundaries. It wasn't out of, I mean, it doesn't matter why people do it. I didn't do it out of revenge. I didn't do it out of any sort of malice or meanness. I did it for self-protection,
Right.
myself,
Exactly.
family. And so boundaries
Exactly.
are okay.
Hmm.
Protecting
Right.
yourself is okay.
Yeah.
And understanding that our actions, even if they come across as positive, is caused by trauma, and we need to, you know, lessen it or change it to be healthier, is okay. It doesn't make you less of
Yeah.
a person.
Exactly. Or less caring of a person or less good of a person.
Because I think sometimes we feel like if we're not doing all these things, then we're not kind, or we're
Right.
not.
Exactly. Exactly.
You
Yeah.
still are. And you know what? You're
Yeah.
going to get some pushback if you change too, and just be careful. Because if you are always, doing 20,000 things for everybody, and you decide to, that you're getting sick and it's hurting you, and you say, okay, wait, I'm going to put some boundaries up. I'm only going to, I'm going to I'm not answering the phone on a Sunday or something, whatever it is that you do to try to protect yourself. People, you may get some pushback for people, especially people who are taking advantage of you. And
Right.
hopefully you'll get
Exactly.
some
Right.
positive response from people that cared about you, who aren't, so,
Right.
but you have to go through that, and you have to be, and it's hard because you're dealing with all that, and then you're finally accepting in yourself, and then all of a sudden now you're having to have other people push back. It will trigger your trigger, it will
Mhm.
trigger
Yes, it will.
you,
Yes. Exactly.
because now it's
Exactly.
people are thinking the things that you thought you were thinking of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just
But innately, like it just that the boundary is necessary. It does feel uncomfortable, like you said, especially when there's pushback. But you also know that the other side of it doesn't feel good. So the boundary is necessary.
boundaries are necessary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, my love. So, of course, I have a
Thank
blog
you.
at jessicaampresto.com with much more detail. And I do go into the more common trauma responses as well. But I'm not going to talk about that today because we're focusing on the ones that look good in the outside, but ones we
Yeah.
don't really recognize.
Yeah.
A beautiful
All
bird
right.
just went by you in your path and your
Oh, really? It is beautiful out here. Um, well, next Friday, same
next
time, same place.
time, same place.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.
Thank you. Oh, how can people find you? Might as well.
I am on Facebook, Sylvia Puentes, on Instagram, Sil Puentes, and my website is kingdom-influencer.com. So
Thank
always here, ready to help with
I love
boundaries.
boundaries. Yes. Good point.
Yeah.
Love
Bye.
you. Bye.